is up, Dunamis? Welcome back to Loan Me Your Eyes. I am so excited for this episode because today my special guest is, come on in, Victoria. Hi, Victoria. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing swell. A little bit tired, but I'm good. I'm good. How about you? How are you doing?
Pretty good for the most part. Yeah.
For sure. Well, thank you for coming on Loan Me Your Eyes. Just for those who are tuning in right now for this episode and haven't seen our other episodes, Loan Me Your Eyes is a series where we sit down and we talk with people from different races, ethnicities, cultures, walks of life, and we get to know them a little bit on a deeper level and to see how their cultures impacted the way that they live right here in America. So, Victoria, once again, thank you so much for joining us. So, the first question straight off the bat that I want to ask is, how do you identify yourself when it comes to culture or ethnicity?
So I identify myself as a Taiwanese American woman. A lot of times I also tie in the fact that I'm a student. And pronouns are she, her, hers.
So to kind of start deep diving a little bit into you and maybe a little bit about your culture, could you explain to us a little bit maybe some of the food that's kind of famous in Taiwan?
Oh, where do I begin? Well, a big one that a lot of people might know in the States is boba. So boba originated in Taiwan. So that's definitely something I'm proud of. And
Nice.
I'd probably say if anyone's been to Din Tai Fung, those xiaolongbao dumplings actually originated from Taiwan as well. And they're basically like juicy pork dumplings, and they're so bomb. Highly recommend. And I would say with Taiwan, there's a lot of, it's kind of hard to make that distinction because a lot of Chinese and Taiwanese foods are very similar. They're just very different in how they're prepped. Taiwanese people tend to back out on the spices. But I would say that a key feature of Taiwanese cuisine is that we are very well known for our night markets. If anyone's been to the Monrovia street fairs on Friday, it's basically like an every weekend thing in Taiwan.
Really?
Yeah.
Night markets. I wouldn't have thought of that. That's interesting.
They're basically like fairs every night on the weekends, every weekend.
That sounds like fun. That definitely sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Me personally, I haven't tried a lot of Taiwanese food. I have tried boba. But again, I didn't know about boba until I moved to Orange County. So a lot of people watching right now might not even know what that is. Actually, I don't think I know that many Taiwanese people, but I definitely know a lot of Korean friends who love boba, and they invite me every weekend, and I'm like, I'm good. I don't need boba this weekend. I'm good. So I definitely know that's definitely something important about the culture, definitely for the Asian community, and especially I bet Taiwan being the original place. So moving on a little bit into, I kind of want to get to know, why did you choose to come on the show and loan us your eyes?
Sure. So I think I'll answer this part in two sections. And the first one, just deal with the fact that I love Camp Dunamis. I love everything that Dunamis has done for me. I've met some of the most amazing people, formed some literally lifelong friendships, met my best friend through Dunamis. My first year Dunamis, we met. We've been best friends for 9 years now, I think.
Wow.
So met my best friend through there. Sophia Daly, who was she was my counselor, and she was also the camp nurse for quite some time. She's actually turned into a lifelong friend and a really good mentor of mine. Katrina Solwazy, same thing. She was a counselor. I met her when she was a counselor, and she's basically turned into a second mom for me. So definitely just amazing relationships, friendships, mentorships that have come out of Dunamis, and it's just a way of me basically wanting to serve Dunamis in a way, to the best of my capabilities, obviously because of everything that's going on, but just show how much I do love Dunamis and love what you guys are doing. And the second part for this particular segment is because I believe that it is so important to, find who you are. not just what your ethnicity is, what your race is, but really, really find who you are. And once you do, I believe that's where you start to build and be able to vocalize like your own thoughts. Connect with people who are different, and also just share the different ideologies. But at the same time, also connect over like similarities as well. And I think that through that, I think people forget that there's a lot of similarity in our differences, so that even if like our battles look a little different, there's still like a common ground, or even a common feeling, maybe even a common cause as to what we're fighting for. So yeah, I definitely say that.
How have current events affected you personally? There's so much that's happened, and it's kind of hard to like not think about or not talk about everything that's going on. Not only the protests and stuff like that, but like COVID, celebrities passing away. This whole 6 months has been insane, never before experienced, especially by our generation. So how have you been? How have these events have affected you on a personal level?
Sure. So I think I'm going to start off with COVID, just because that one's been there for quite the longer time.
Mm-hmm.
I would say when it first started, or when I guess when the US started to realize that it was getting pretty bad, I could say on my end, I definitely was worried and panicking, because UCSD, for those of you that don't know, has a really good medical school and a hospital right next to it, literally within like 2 miles of the campus. And UCSD is actually very well known for their specializations rather than for primary care. So when COVID was getting really bad, UCSD was actually one of the hospitals that people would send their patients to be taken care of, because they had the equipment, they had the training, they had the personnel. But it was terrifying because we were so close to campus. And we were also one of the first schools to actually move everything off campus. And I just remember that I was about to take my finals at that time for winter quarter, and having to deal with, the news of like, we need to move back off campus ASAP, and then also trying to study for your finals and do well, was definitely a lot of extra stress that I don't ever wish anyone to have.
Yeah.
And it was so conflicting, because obviously the higher authorities within the school system were trying to tell us like, try to move off campus as soon as you can. And then at the same time, they would be like, oh, but technically they're still allowed to finish the last week of classes on campus. And so that miscommunication, I feel like, heightened the fear and even the anxiety that was going around campus. And I just remember that, when we had, people were starting to worry because the cases were rising exponentially. So when there were cases within the area, people started to panic. And I feel like that panic, for me personally, actually started to die off, because I just remember my pastors being like, this is just something that you remember that God is always in control. And that was like a phrase that I just kept holding on to, and knowing that despite everything that was happening, despite the chaos, like, God knows exactly what is happening, and there has already been a solution to come out of it. And holding on to that perspective allowed me to put faith over fear, and that's what drove me to be able to kind of be like at a more calm state, but also be that support for my friends who are really like fluctuating in their emotions. Fortunately, like, I haven't had experience with anyone close to me who's personally experienced COVID, but I've definitely had friends where they've had family members who had COVID, and some have passed and some luckily got better. But I think that it's definitely scary, and I don't want to undermine how anyone's felt, but on a personal level, like, I feel like it's been a lot calmer for me than it has been for my friends. With celebrities passing, I would say the same thing. Like, I grew up watching Kobe, but I can't say that like his death affected me in the same way it affected some of my friends, where legit like they didn't eat for like a week because that the news hit them that bad. But I also still had the same role where, because I was more grounded, I had to be really careful about my mental health, because I wanted to always be there for them, but I also knew if I didn't take care of myself, then I wouldn't be in the right headspace to take care of them.
For sure.
Yeah, and with the protests right now, I definitely say that it's helped drive my fuel to want to go into healthcare, because it just reminds me of so many of the issues that we deal with healthcare with, unequal access, or even just different social determinants of health that people don't really talk about, or people are very unaware that actually drive a person's health, whether it makes their health better or worse. The racial inequalities found in healthcare, the racial disparities, the gender disparities found in healthcare, everything that we're protesting about now is very relevant to what I want to do in the healthcare field. So it's been, I would say that I appreciate the protests going on, because it's showing and allowing me to voice what I want to fight for in the healthcare field. It's opening a lot of dialogues between me and family members, where we try to have conversations like this before and it's all gone the wrong path, because one, it could be very conservative, or two, it could just be a traditional mindset that just has never changed over the last couple of generations. But these protests and the relevance to the US, as well as the relevance to other countries, is very important and needs to be talked about. And it's not a conversation that can be delayed any longer. So, yeah.
Yeah. Have you personally had any difficulties when speaking with your family when it comes to this situation?
One, I would say a big part of it is just lost in translation, or not knowing the correct term in Mandarin. Like, I am fluent in Mandarin, but I'm not fluent in, like, I would say I'm like fluent in like conversational Mandarin. But when it comes to even like legal terms, medical terms, or politically correct terms, those are not things that I myself am very well educated in. But I've definitely found like posts where people have translated that beautifully and made it simple to understand and to send. So I've been like actively sending out resources and articles to family and friends who might not speak English. But aside from the language barrier, there's definitely a I would say it's like a generational mindset difference that has been really difficult to overcome. It gets really, I think on one end, it's like, it's so easy for me to be like, okay, look, racism is wrong. And then on their end, racism is wrong, and the but just needs to be gone. Like, there needs to be a period at the end of racism is wrong. No ands, ifs, or buts. And that back and forth of like, no, the but needs to be there and the but shouldn't be there, has just been a very tiring conversation, because it feels like it's not progressing forward. But it's also opening up my eyes to realize that this is a conversation that I should have started within my family a longer while back. But I am grateful for the opportunity and the space to do it now, because there's so many resources coming in. And I love the fact that there's also just so much evidence to back it up, because I grew up in a family where, you know, if it just came out of my mouth, especially as an Asian American woman, we're taught to not speak on issues. We're actually taught to just be submissive and be quiet, and, you know, but this isn't a time to be quiet. It's not a time to just sit and not say anything. So, you know, even if it feels natural, I guess, barriers and boundaries, like, that's what I'm called to do. Those barriers and boundaries weren't set for me to just be enclosed and just sit there and let immoralities just happen and me be okay with it. So, yeah.
For sure. I would actually like to hear a little bit on that part as well. How has that part of your culture, you know, the idea of, by the way, I love the InterVarsity shirt. I'm part of InterVarsity too. Sorry, I just wanted to mention that.
You're good.
But as I was saying, how has that part of the culture, the idea of women shouldn't really speak out on situations, especially in situations like this. How has that affected you as being Asian American, where in America that's kind of different, So
Yeah.
how has that affected you personally?
I would say it definitely confused me growing up. On one end, like at home, I was the quietest girl. But like at school or even with my friends, like I was always the one talking and vocalizing. So I feel like on one hand, I'm really glad I found my voice earlier on, but being able to transition between, knowing when to talk in front of my elders within the culture and knowing when to be quiet was really hard for me to channel. And even now, I could be saying something very respectfully, but within the Taiwanese culture, if I'm not called upon, to them, there's no need for me to speak. And that gets frustrating because it's like, I'm a part of this family. I should be able to say something. And, I've always thought, like, it's fine if we have our differences, as long as it doesn't turn into like this whole argument and then it becomes like personal insults. Like, I think everyone should be entitled to their own opinion. That's fine. But when the shift happens from, trying to have a cordial conversation, discussion, whatever you want to call it, into just personal remarks of attacks because, they just feel like they're entitled to be able to suppress my voice, that's something that I was just not okay with. And to be honest, I feel like in college, toward like my third and fourth year of college, I started to let go of being afraid of what other people would say. And I just started talking. And if that meant that I wasn't going to hear from some family for a long time, then so be it. Because like I said before, I can't change them. And really, it's just like to me, I've realized it's like a cycle, a pattern. At the end of the day, it's, I can't change them, but I will continue to voice my opinions. And I would also continue to fight for my friends on their behalf, doing what I can, to be a voice, to use my platform. So, yeah.
For sure. Thank you for sharing that. So, Victoria, would you say that whole situation has that been something that's made it easier or harder to build bridges with previous generations for you?
Definitely harder.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely harder. But I think the important thing to remember is understanding that change doesn't happen overnight, and change requires challenging established thoughts that were previously there. But being able to, I think on my end, educating myself first and building a strong foundational background as to how I would demonstrate my point of view has been a lot easier. Because like I said, my family was always big on, making sure that you had all the right evidence before you presented something. And so taking that and understanding that part of my culture, I used that same concept and applied it to what was going on today. So let's say, for example, if I'm talking about Black Lives Matter, like I know I have my articles backed up. I know I have case scenarios backed up. If I need translations, I looked up the translations and I use them within the language that I'm using to speak to, whether it be like family or friends who might not understand English as well. Like on my end, I have to prep and be prepared for questions that would be coming my way, but also understanding that like at the end of the day, if they try to attack me for me, that's not a reflection of who I am or my character, that's a reflection on them. So
yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, and I guess in closing this interview up, the last question that I guess I want to ask is for you specifically, forgetting for a few seconds about culture, about the Asian community as a whole, how would you tell people from any walks of life, any color of skin, any ethnicity, for example, someone like me, how can someone like me begin to build bridges with you?
be yourself, be kind, and be yourself. I think that's just the key to life, really. Like the key to even, like not even making friends, but just making someone's day. Like a smile goes a long way, a compliment goes a long way. So really just be kind and be yourself.
Well, I want to thank you once again, Victoria, for joining us. It was truly, truly a pleasure to be able to sit down with you for, even if it's virtually, just to talk to you about what it is to be you. So thank you for loading us your eyes for this amount of time. And for those of you who are watching, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure to keep tuning into the rest of the stuff that we have for today and for the coming days. Also, make sure, if you haven't seen any of the other episodes that we've already posted, we already have a few up. Please go check those out as well. Those are really exciting. And make sure to tune in tonight for chapel time. It's going to be amazing. We're going to have some awesome worship and an awesome speaker, so be there for that. And if you want information on any other stuff, social media, etc., it's going to be down in the description below or above, depending on where this is posted. So make sure to tune in on that. So Victoria, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for loading us your eyes, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.